Hello, guys. Today we have come together to understand the concept of the life cycle of a stock. Now, what is the life cycle basically? Now, the point is a stock goes to many phases of the entire life cycle of moving up and down. And the best part is if you understand this concept of in which phase the stock is, your work of identification when to enter, when not to enter the stock becomes very easy. Because consider that if you are planning to buy an XYZ stock and if it has gone into the phase of distribution, that is, the bigger hands have already decided or are already exiting the stock, and if you are getting buy calls or your indicators are lining up and asking you to buy because your MACD is going up, RSI is below, underbought and everything. So what would you do? You just go and invest in the stock, and then you realize that the stock has gone down and you are facing major losses. So in such kind of scenario, what would you do? So your main aim over and the purpose over here is to first identify in which phase the stock is, and then decide whether you want to invest in this stock, or do you want to wait for it to break out from that phase and then decide whether you want to buy. Or if it doesn't happen as you have planned, then your work is done. So let us just understand what are the life cycles of the stock. So basically the stock life cycle is divided into four stages. Now first is the accumulation phase, second is the advancing phase, third is the distribution phase, and fourth is the declining phase. Now what happens in the stock is that, say, consider in any product you are an wholesaler. So what would an wholesaler do? Wholesaler would try to fill up their storage or storehouse of a product which he might know can have a potentiality to sell to the retailers at a higher price. What would he do? He would fill his warehouse with that product with as cheap rate as possible, isn't it? Would an wholesaler store a product in his storehouse at a higher price? No, because he would sell it to the retailers at a higher price. That is his main intention. So consider promoters, mutual funds, PFs and FIIs, DII. Consider operators or whoever who has a big chunk of money. They are not going to buy a stock at a higher price. What are they going to do? They are going to buy the stock as low price as possible. So sorry for that, and let's start. How does that work? So consider a stock is falling since years, months, week, whatever it is. Now what happens after the stock falls, or say it's a new stock, it basically goes to a phase where you are made to understand that there is no demand at all in the market. So what happens? The stock becomes price bound. So what happens? The stock moves in a range like this. So whenever you open a chart, say in a weekly time frame, monthly time frame, this basically goes in all the time frames, but higher the time frame the better it is. So consider I go and see weekly time frame, then monthly time frame. The stock goes in a very zigzag pattern. It has a very near resistance, it has a very near support, and it works in that price band only, where there are hardly any demand or retailers in that stock. So what happens? The stock over here is in an accumulation stage, where big players find out their big plans of the company, or the promoters of the company who already knows that the big order is going to come, or some new management changes are going to come, which retail players are not aware of. So what do? They slowly accumulate the stock. They got a lot of patience, but as a retailers we don't have that much patience, so we are not at the stage at all. So this accumulation stage is basically only for those people who knows the inside game of the stock. Okay, so what do they? Listen, accumulation. They keep accumulating at a lowest price as much as possible, or at least they buy the major chunk or the liquidity from the market. Now, what happens once their liquidity is done? There is no more, much of a sellers left in the market. They know they have taken the major stake in this particular stock. Now the point comes where they want to earn money. What do they do? Now over here, they'll give one breakout. Now, as soon as the stock gives breakout, this stock is entering into phase 2, that is advancing phase. Now here where all your Dow theory and all your teachers that have explained that every high that it makes, it goes not in a straight line, it makes zigzag pattern, it has higher highs and lower lows, everything that comes into the theory is in phase 2. Now here in phase 2 there are PMS holders, there are portfolio managers, there are retailers, there are analysts. Everybody will start screaming. The balance sheet will start improving of the company. But what has happened? The game has already happened in this accumulation stage. Sorry. The big players have already started or already had bought the stock. Over here is just where the game starts for them, and here is where we as a traders have to keep an eye, and we have to find a stock which has just entered into the advancing phase. Because what happens is that as the accumulation phase has no time period, the accumulation phase can go from say days, weeks, months, or can be even years. The same thing, the advancing phase, the earlier you enter, you would not know how long that advancing phase may last. If the stock is going to have a fantastic say fundamentals or anything, or a good news for a long term, then this advancing stage can last for years. And maybe there's a very short term news, then the advancing stage may last for just weeks. So the earlier you enter at the breakout stage, there is a huge chance for you all to earn a good profit with a great risk to reward ratio. Now if you see the stock over here, as soon as it gives a breakout, makes a high, low, and again goes up, goes down, up, down, up, down, up, down, then it will do a little bit of sideways, then up, down, up, down. So this is basically known as an uptrend. If you'll just put a trend line over here, the stock will keep going up with higher highs and higher lows. So this is what you tell them a stock is an uptrend. In the life cycle language, we will quote it as an advancing stage. Now this is where we want to be. Here, break of a resistance, here, break off and resistance, here, break off and resistance. Now higher you keep going and keep buying, riskier your trade gets, because you never know which can be the last peak of a stock. This we have no idea. So the earlier in the advancing stage you are better placed to earn a maximum profit. So it all depends upon you, how you read this accumulation stage and how you read the advancing stage. Now a time comes when this accumulator of a stock will again come to know that when is the story of that stock is getting over. Not retailers, not small players, none. Only the players who are who has inside information of the company, or a great analyst who is doing sector analysis and globalization and everything. He would come to know about such kind of entire sector going to turn around, and such kind of study would help that the particular rally can come to an end. So what happens? They start booking profits. But in the market, in the news and everywhere, which I always keep telling is that reduce the noise. What does it mean? That stop reading newspapers, stop watching channels and everything, which gives you 24 hours of tips and everything, because they keep filling your head with a lot of information which is not required. What happens is that they will start, the PMS holders and portfolio managers, and they'll keep crazily keep screaming that the company is going to do better and better and better. But all we need to know in which phase we are. So what happens is that the stock is losing the steam. It's basically not making a new higher high. It might make a new higher high, but it's losing the steam. It's not making such kind of movement anymore. The stock is basically moving in that particular zone as it was in accumulation stage. What happens, the big players are slowly taking the advantage of the liquidity that is available in the market, because it has already moved so up. So there are a lot of traders, retail traders, who are feeling that they have been left out, of a fear, a greed that they might lose the major chunk rally next which is going to come, and then they keep adding up the stocks in their portfolio at a wrong price, at a wrong phase. And what happens is that when it becomes this particular zone again at the top, this becomes distribution stage. So what happens, this accumulators, as I said, are already the people who know that the stock phase is going to end soon. They start selling their stock slowly, not hampering the stock at one shot. So otherwise, who would buy their stocks which they already have in the warehouse? So they are slowly emptying their warehouse without the retailers come to know. They keep the volumes very low, but they are in a very consistent sellers in it. So this is known as a distribution phase, where traders do not realize, and the accumulators at the bottom will start selling the stock. Now what happens once the buying stops? Everybody has stop loss in this area. What happens? The stock loses the steam, and suddenly we have a breakdown again, known as breakout, and the stock will fall. Now remember friends, when the stock falls, it falls faster than it has gone up, because gravity acts, gravity law applies everywhere. While going up, it will take time because it requires a lot of money to go up. But once the distribution phase is over, sorry for that, once the distribution phase is over, what happens is that there are no buyers, so selling pressure will crash the stock down, and it will be much faster than the advancing stage. And once the stock start losing, it will start going down. Then what happens is again that the particular stock, if it is fundamentally strong or making consecutive businesses in the market, it will again come down to a particular level where the accumulators are again interested in that that stocks in a specific rate, and then again the life cycle of accumulation again starts over here, or maybe at a lower price, or maybe at a higher price, but this accumulation will happen again. When? We don't know. Again, after the fall, it may take days, weeks, years. We have no idea. There is no specific time. So what we learn from this exercise is that every stock has 4 stages. The first is accumulation stage, where all the big players keep accumulating stock at a very low price by keeping the price in a very minimum band, because they want no retailers to know that the stock is going to have a good rally in the near future, and their aim is to grab as many stocks or suck the entire liquidity from the market. So it's very easy for them to create the story, and all the retailers are running around that stock and they just start selling. Okay, so as soon as there is a breakout in this accumulation stage, the stock enters into the second phase, that is advancing stage. In advancing stage, what happens is that all the newspapers and reports and balance sheets and P&L account, and then every analyst starts going crazy about the stock with amazing news coming out, and they will all scream buy, 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 buy. So the earlier that you enter in this advancing stage, better for you, because you have no idea which peak is your going to be. The peak will start a distribution phase. Now what happens in this distribution phase is the stock lose the momentum. Okay, but we don't understand, because there are a lot of noise in the market. newspapers and channels and everybody is going to keep saying about it, that the stock is great, keep buying, and so target, so and so target, new things are coming up in the market. But the point is, we need to understand the price. The price tells us everything. So what happens in the distribution phase, again I'll repeat, is that it's exactly the opposite of accumulation. All the big players will start using the liquidity that has been created because of the news, and they'll start exiting the stock in a very minimum volumes where people will not understand. And then slowly, when the buying has stopped, what happens is that the momentum is not up anymore, and the retailers will start losing the patience. And after the buying has stopped, what happens? You don't need people to sell. You stop the buying, and the pressure will be created, and the stock goes up only when there is a huge amount of money involved in it. Once the money stops flowing it, the pressure starts building in the stock, because there is no more money to take the stock up, because retailers do not have that much strength to take a stock to another level. You need some kind of big players in it. So what happens? As soon as the confidence goes from the stock, it hits a lot of stop losses, new pressure generates, and what happens? You don't need too much of volume for the stock to fall, because there is no buying, selling pressure will increase, and due to the gravity law, the stock falls. People will start exiting the stock at one shot, because nobody wants to buy anymore, nobody wants the stock in the portfolio. They can't bear any more losses about it, and they'll start selling. After that, the stage 4 starts, that is the declining stage. Okay, so these are the main 4 stages that we learned, and then again the life cycle again starts at some other particular rate, or maybe the same level. The same story repeats. Now this entire story may take years to happen, maybe 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. Maybe a very good fundamental stock might have a very big life cycle, say 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, we don't know. So you cannot decide a life cycle, but only thing you can understand from the price and the movement of the stock, that which phase it is. So guys, don't get stuck with the reports and expectations to create buying at lows and selling at highs. If you are in a wrong phase, my friend, you are going to face losses. So make sure that you are in a right phase. In the distribution phase, you should be a seller, not a buyer. You should be buyer at the start of phase 2, that is accumulation phase. Be as early as possible. Try to identify such kind of stocks which are coming out of such accumulation phases. Now let's take one example of in our stock market, that is over here is the Z Limited Entertainment. Okay, now this stock was fresh in 2008. Now can you all see, from 2008 till 2012, nearly 4 years it was in the accumulation stage, and the chart is weekly. So the lower you go, the better you can identify. The higher you go, the better you can identify the stocks in which phase it is, because when you are want to understand what phase it is, you want to invest for a long term, and you want to know which stage is going to, which direction it's happening, it's best to go on the higher time frame. So weekly, monthly is the best for you all to identify. So this is let me just take the brush here. So this is basically the accumulation phase, which stayed nearly around from April 2007 to October 2012. Now can you see here, the stock gave a breakout, and here where the stock entered into the phase 2. Now the phase 2 is the advancing phase, and this is exactly where we want to be. Identify such kind of stock in the early breakout phase and then invest. And what happens from 2012 till 2018, 6 years. 6 years the stock stayed in that bullish direction. Now what happens, I will consider this as a bullish direction, because this breakout had still not happened. Until unless the breakout doesn't happen, I cannot tell this as a declining stage, because what can happen is after making the zigzag, the stock can again go up and continue this bull run. As I said, there is no specific number of years. The cycle can go on for 30 years, 40 years. You don't know. So what happens is that to name that phase, you need to first, it needs to have first a breakout. As over here, it gave a breakout for us to name it as phase 2. That is accumulation phase. So anything before this was, advancing phase. So anything before that was an accumulation phase. Okay. So it's as simple as that. What happens? The stock was again hovering in that zone. Now I cannot tell this thing as a distribution phase in the beginning, but as soon as it gave this as a breakout, as a breakout, this was distribution phase. So what happened? After it gave a breakout, it came down, retest, came down, retest, and the stock just fell down with the gravity. Now if you see, from 2012 to 2018, it took 6 years for the stock to go up, but from 2018 it just came down in 2020. It just took nearly 2 years. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? This is how the gravity works. You fall down faster than you go up. Everything was amazing. The reports were coming great in this distribution phase, and this is what the accumulators were taking advantage, and they were exiting the stock without anybody knowing. And what happens when the stock became little bit, if you see, lucrative for the accumulators, what they do, they start accumulating again. Do you see this beautiful volumes? Someone is accumulating at this stage. This is what I consider. What it may happen that the stock is over here and may again start going down. But as of now, it seems that the stock is getting accumulated, and if it gives a breakout, make sure that you are an investor in this phase again. So this entire stock is the life cycle of a product, as I have explained you. I hope, my friends, that you've understood and identified the right phase of the stock, of an index, of commodity, of a currency, and do not get stuck at the wrong time. Identify at what phase you are. Stock might be good, I'm not denying it, but they go through the phase. This happens in every time frame, monthly, weekly, daily, 1 hour, 15 minutes. But the smaller the time frame, the life cycle is smaller. Higher the time frame, the life cycle is longer. So decide your time frame and act according to it. Okay, this is the video from Yogesh for you all to understand what is life cycle of a stock. I hope to see you in other videos for you all to understand, and please give your feedback or any other information that you need on this topic. Mail me, I shall be happy to help you all, guys. Thank you.